Is what it is.
Hi, Joe.
Hi,
How are
Michelle.
you?
I'm so good. How are you?
I am fantastic. And I love to start with two fun facts. Fun fact number one, happy birthday. I'm so
Thank
excited you
you.
agreed to do this on your birthday. Do
Yeah, it
you
is
want me
my
to sing?
birthday. Yeah, I mean, why not? I mean,
All right.
it's a gift
Okay.
to myself.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Joe. One of my best buddies in the
In the
universe.
world.
Happy birthday to you.
Woo! Thank you. That's so nice.
Yay. I love you. I love you.
I
So
sing to you
that's fun
enough.
fact
It's your
one.
turn.
I know, right? Now you get to sing to me later, sometime.
Oh boy.
Fun fact
Marry
number
me.
two is we used to drop share together.
We did.
I mean,
I
you
learned how
know
to
it's
clean a
wet,
desk.
right? Because I'm like, can I just do this over because it's a little messy? Thanks.
I
And
think
you're
it
like,
was more like,
sure.
here's the spray bottle, and if this could be clean when I got back, that would be great.
It probably happened that way. That's probably true. Yeah,
You were very
a
nice about it.
dictator.
I knew I
Right.
needed to clean it.
There's crumbs still. Please fix that.
Oh God, I'm
Oh
sure
my
it was the
gosh.
dust, man. I think it was at Metavante. The dust was, I don't know, for whatever reason. I
What
remember
year
because you
was
would
that?
make me clean. I'd be like, how is it dusty? This dusty again. I just cleaned it a week ago.
That 2010.
2000.
What was it?
No, that was in
Wait,
2000.
it was in
2001,
2000.
something like that. Yeah, 2000, 2001.
It's been 20 years.
It's been 20 years, Michelle.
We're old, dude.
And then we came back one more time, I think, or we're moving on, and I wanted an assignment, so I just replaced you, and you moved on, and I was back again.
Oh yeah,
the
that's
second time.
right. Yeah, you did. Yeah, because we did it together at Metavante, and then did it again at Harley Davidson.
And the
I
same. Oh
said,
yeah, and then have I
yeah,
just followed you basically?
maybe. I don't know. Are you stalking me?
Not at all. Any openings by where you're living?
Oh man, this is so much fun. So we're here to talk about empathy. And it's near and dear to your heart. Mine now because I understand it. And Jay is my husband, is so empathetic. It's in his DNA, right? As it is yours. So why is it important to you? Why do you think it's important in the workplace to pay attention to it? What's your thought on that?
At work specifically.
Well, I mean, we can broaden it. We can do work and
Yeah.
life, but I think it's easier. I believe it's easier to show up with empathy in a personal sense
It's
because
true.
you don't have as much red tape or boundaries or stickiness. I think I don't know. Is that true or not true?
Well, sort of true. Like if you're talking about someone that you've known or gotten to know over time, and
Right.
there's none of those, sort of work expectations, right? You can be more of an authentic self, and you're just kind of building some sort of a connection, whether it's a friendship or maybe even a love interest. Those people, of course, you can be more yourself at work. I think it's a little different. That's why I wanted to kind of distinguish between the two, because at work, yes, you can show empathy, but you're not really in relationships with those people, right? And it's oftentimes
It's not as intimate,
the goal.
probably, right?
Right, and it's not the goal, right? People don't want to
Right.
be friends with people at work because then if something happens, then the friendship dies or whatever, then it bothers their work, so they try to separate. And a lot of people do that, especially in corporate America. I think you find that, but you can still have empathy at work. And for me, like you said, it's always been a part of me. I mean, I have this picture of myself I share sometimes. I'm literally like probably, I don't know, maybe I'm 5, maybe 6, and it's all the kids, on our front porch in Hawthorne, California, and I'm literally doing one of these things. Like everyone's trying to smile for the picture, and I'm like, it's so precious, right? I'm like, I just want to love people, So it kind of was. I was like kind of born with that. Like my mom would tell stories about, like I would go get a cookie, right? But I would always get a cookie, and I would say, well, I need 2. And she's like, don't be greedy. I'm like, it's not for me. I'm getting one for Suzanne, my sister.
Oh,
Like ever since a
that's
kid, right?
adorable, Joe.
Yeah. So how it was built, right? But at work, the empathy, I think, comes out in different ways. It's understanding where someone's coming from. It's understanding maybe they've had a bad day or a bad week. It's being willing to forgive a mistake when something happens. I'm not saying you let someone walk all over you, but someone makes a mistake the first time, the second time, you see they're trying. Well, you can have empathy for that person and give them some grace and say, oh, okay. And in our case, right, we're project managers, program managers. You said you get it done by this time. Oh, you didn't. Well, tell me that story. Oh, I can understand. You don't have to be like, what do you mean you didn't get it done? Well, now we're all going to be late and it's all your fault. Right? Like you're not going to one, get probably much out of that person, but two, how do you work with them again on a new project? How do you maintain what you say a relationship, even if it's not a friendship, right? If it's not a personal relationship, you still have to see that person day in and day out. So I think when we talk about empathy at work, I base some of my stuff on like Simon Sinek. And so I don't know if you followed any of his stuff. Simon Sinek.
Yeah, I love him.
Yeah, he's great. Right? He did an interview with this guy named Bob Chapman. I think it was Bob Chapman. Chapman is for sure the last name. And he actually runs a company up in oh gosh, what's that area that does the paper in northern Wisconsin?
I don't know. I can't
remember the name. Yeah, it's in northern Wisconsin, and it's the big
Oshkosh?
place north of Appleton and all of that, near Oshkosh. It's around that area. But for the big paper mills, right? And this guy supplies machinery and things like that to folks like these big paper mills. But he runs his company literally with the tagline, I want to run a company where people feel safe, valued for the skills they bring to the table, and are rewarded for their work. Because the belief is, and I'm a huge buyer in on this, because if you can provide those three things, safety, value, and reward, that makes a very happy worker. And that worker, and the reason it's important is because that worker, not only that behavior will reflect back to the people they work with, but they're going to bring it home, and they're going to treat their sister better, their wife better, their husband better, their mother better, right? Because they're going to be a more happy individual. To me, that's empathy at work, right? You find ways to instill those three things, right? Someone's afraid they don't want to tell you the truth about a thing because they think there's going to be repercussions. No, make sure they feel safe
to share the truth, right? Whether it's like it may not be what you want to hear, but if you provide the container, then they're like, okay, this has gone sideways. Here's how it's gone sideways, and at least you're getting the information to do something about it.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And again, I'm not saying you can't go around showing everyone all the empathy you've ever had, and they treat you badly, and you're like, oh, let me understand you. Like that's not tenable. It's not tenable long term. It's going to cause you some emotional issues. It's certainly going to allow them to kind of use you up at work. You don't do that, but if you can find in your interactions with other people throughout your day at your job, and again, you, instead of jumping to the worst, try to see it from the best, perspective, and then ask follow-up questions and get in their head and ask, hey, what's going on? Are you in a bad mood? Did I do something wrong? Did I say something that triggered you? Feel free to ask those questions, because those are all empathic questions. Vulnerability to allow them to be then honest and vulnerable back. And then I think that builds trust, and from trust comes safety. And then, it kind of goes out from there. Forgive some of my answers. I'm not licensed, but like I totally love psychology.
No, well, but you are. I mean, what you're saying is that those qualities are qualities of empathy, and then that builds trust, which then allows you to get stuff done and not alienate people, regardless of whether you're friends with them or not. That's what I just heard.
Exactly. Think about the last time, and I know you've had one, Michelle. I certainly have had mine. The last time you had an interaction with a project team member, and they just totally throw you under the bus, maybe even because they had a bad day. Maybe they had a bad day, right? I mean, complete lies, whatever it is. Are you going to when you go back to that person in the
You're gonna
next
be like,
week's project, you're not going to
like,
be like, oh yeah, let's work
no,
together.
I'm not gonna want to like hold hands and sing Kumbaya. No, I'm not gonna want to do that.
Exactly. Yeah. So, the empathy is hopefully at some point you can reach out and say, hey, what just happened? It's okay. I get we all have a bad day, but let's talk about it. And hopefully you lead them to, a place where they can resolve or apologize or whatever. Not that they will, because a lot of them won't.
They may not.
And you may not get any resolution, right? But if you give the chance for it, then it covers over that mistake. Well, now the next time maybe you're in a place
where you need
the grace
right?
back.
You need to cash in that check or whatever, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, no one's perfect, including myself.
Hi, Kristen.
Hi, Kristen.
I was just thinking about this topic because I had an end user be pretty mean to me, but then I was just thinking maybe he's had a rough work day or maybe home troubles. It doesn't matter. My reaction does, though. Empathy.
Yes. Good point. Your reaction. Exactly. It's your reaction to what is being said. Yeah.
That is beautifully written. And I think, there was a time. So, Joe, we were talking about this before we hopped on live. There was a time that I believe I acted like a dictator, right? Because I'm like, there's no feelings in the workplace, right? Just do your job. I should raise the Patriots shirt up, right?
For which I am the manager.
Right, exactly. And so, but that doesn't help. I mean, to Kristen's point just now, all of us have bad days. We have and what you said earlier before I read Kristen's comment is, we might need that back at us, right? We may be in a position where something's going sideways and we need to be able to say, hey, I'm just having a bad day, or get the allowance because someone can understand where we're coming from and they're putting themselves in our shoes.
Right. Yeah, that's the build up the trust. I think I'm trying to remember who told me this. I want to say it was a therapist of mine.
Gandhi?
His name was Gregory. It was awesome.
Okay.
Gandhi, I know, really. Yes.
I mean,
when I talk to him, because
right, exactly.
But no, I think it was Gregory, and he said that. So his definition of trust was, over a period of time, instances of vulnerability and response. Right. So, or I would say grace and response. Right. So a way to build trust at work is to allow someone the grace to not be perfect. And that's a bit of empathy, right? It's not expecting everything of them. It's allowing that they're human and saying, okay, so you screwed up. How do we get it back on the rails? Don't worry about it. Let's think about the solution. Because, that it's going to happen to you too. You're going to, no one is perfect. You're going to mess up. And then if they provide that back to you, that's the beginning of a really excellent work relationship, right? And some people won't, right? And that's kind of a gift too, because then you know who not to try to continue doing that with, right? Like, because that's just going to be detrimental to you and steal your joy. Then how do you give empathy to people if you're constantly, upset?
And here's something. I actually looked at the definitions because there's sometimes sympathy and empathy get interchanged. And so the sympathy definition is a feeling of pity or sorrow for someone else's misfortune. And then empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of another. So it's really the verse. I'm sorry you're in those shoes, or I'm sorry your shoes are dirty, or I'm sorry that those are horrible shoes, as opposed to, I can put myself in those shoes and that doesn't feel great. And I can see myself wearing those shoes. Is that the distinction?
Yes. It's to me, it's so sympathy is at someone, empathy is with someone.
Oh, nice. I like how you said that. Okay.
Yeah, because they look, even that definition, right? If you saw someone, I don't know, who was starving, what good does it do that person? Though it means you're probably a decent person inside, but what good does it do to vocalize, oh, I'm so sorry that you're so starving and you look terrible. Oh, I feel so bad for you.
Like that's not
I mean, it doesn't help them, and it may even make them feel worse, right? But
right.
sitting down next to them within safety's guidelines, right? But sitting down
Mhm.
next to them and saying, "Wow, man, I've been hungry before. I know it sucks.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
sorry."
Here's a burger or
Now you're
whatever,
treating them
right?
like a human being. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I love this stuff, and I
Yeah,
prefer it
it's
obviously
good.
in my personal life because there's nuances in business with empathy, right? You just don't have the same free reign as
Well,
you
there's
do with a
boundary.
friend.
Then you could do. I think the boundaries are maybe a bit. I don't know. Are they trickier, or are the
At
boundaries
work,
easier, or
oh, I think they're much trickier at work. Boundaries are much
okay,
trickier at work. And so funny,
okay.
I was actually talking to my coach just about this, like, I mean, like 2 or 3 weeks ago, right? And he would said the
Mhm.
same thing. Um, he's like, boundaries in your personal life are easier because you're sort of the master and commander of that engagement, right? In
Oh, that's a good way
theory,
to look at it. Okay.
you can do whatever you want, right? You can say, hey, I like this. Hey, no, I didn't like that. Hey, here's what I expect in the future. Hey, if you don't do it, you're out. Whatever,
It's
right?
your boat,
You call the shots. At
right?
work, you can't say those same things,
Right.
but yet you
It's
still
not
have to
your boat.
navigate the same waters, right? Oh, I
That makes
can't say
sense.
never talk to me again. Well, you have to if we're working on a project together. So it
True.
is much more difficult, and it's much more difficult when you set those boundaries. And this is boundary setting, not really empathy, but when you set a boundary at work, and the other person is someone who struggles with the fact that people set boundaries, right? So if boundaries
Sure.
trigger that person,
Hmm.
and that's quite often it can happen. It's very common. They could completely explode and blow up.
Yeah,
And
lose their mind.
what are you going to do?
Mhm.
How do you make that better? Because it's just going to create noise at places, right? And unfortunately, might then also lead that person to some negative consequences at work because now how are they going to explain that away from their boss, right, or whatever, right? And it really was just a trigger.
Well, and I don't know about
It's
you,
really
but
bad people, right?
Kristen is still with us. She's like, empathy equals, dude, I get you, I feel you. That's awesome.
Thanks,
I
Kristen.
love that you're saying dude too, Kristen, because I say that all the time as well. I just called Joe that earlier.
That's okay. I call her girl all the time.
I know, girl.
I don't know. Like, did you pick me, by the way, for this? Because, like, so Michelle had me fill out the strengths test in the beginning. I have a staffing agency, and we were starting it, and we were going through all of this kind of advice that she gives and others to help them be successful. And one of them was take the strengths test, right? And I took it, and literally, like, number one was empathy.
Bing.
I think number two was honesty.
Yeah. Well, so why I asked you, why I invited you to this conversation is I know, I mean, you are passionate about this topic, right? You embody it. And so you love talking about it. You love sharing information about it. And so that gets me jazzed, and you can just see that oozing out of you, right? So that's what people, want to hear from someone that really was practicing it, is in the trenches with it. I think that's
Yeah.
important.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. I on
It's
the
not
topic
easy.
of yeah, well, it can't, and it can be difficult, right? Because I know
No.
I watch Jay in situations practicing empathy, and sometimes you can lose yourself in that, right?
Oh, for
Meaning
sure.
you're caring for somebody else first, as
Mhm.
opposed to taking care of yourself. That happens. But I want to go back on, you had said that when somebody blows up, right? And
Oh,
how do you
fuck.
handle that? And so now we're going to get into the how. Let's get into the how.
Boy.
So for me, because it's not in my top five, this has been a learned skill for me for sure. And for those of us that are not, it's not effortless, or it's not essential to who they are. For me, when I see somebody lose their mind, and maybe it was something that I did, right? It very well could have been. There's a situation that just happened not that long ago where there was miscommunication. I sent a firm email. It was stern and firm. It was stern and firm. It was all factual, but it was received in a way that was like, wow, like I was blowing somebody's eyebrows off, right?
Yeah, like
Which
you hit him with a
I have a
hammer.
tendency, right? I mean, That's possible. Sometimes I've done that. I try not to do that. So when we get on the phone, I said, "Can we just have a conversation?" Because she came back, lobbed something back over
Yes.
with
Yep.
email, and she's like, "Right, we're gonna blow up this whole thing." So let's before we blow things up, let's have a conversation. So I hopped on the call, and before we even started, right, one of the ways that I show up with empathy, and I said, I I can understand what I did wrong with that email. I can understand how that could have been perceived. I am
Right.
sorry for my behavior, A and B, right? A, B, C, whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
And please accept my apology for that. And it just brought it from here.
Yeah. That's like, by the way, I don't know if you know that. That is like the psychological textbook way to apologize to someone.
Oh,
You
awesome.
make sure
Well,
you
good.
take
So I
ownership.
get a check.
You take ownership. You talk about, truly apologize, but you help them to
Yeah.
understand that you truly get where they're coming from. Because only when you really kind of can have that conversation can you move forward.
We have to mean it too, right? I think,
You have to
because
mean
if
it.
you
You
don't
can't
mean
just
it,
fake
then
it.
people
Yeah,
will
yeah,
right, because then people see through that. Like,
yeah.
I'm sorry, and you had look like you ate a shit sandwich.
And the empathy on that is, let's say you don't see it, so then you have to ask, what did I do? I had a very similar, again, because we're project managers, right? So as we're dealing with people and things, right, I had a very similar situation, and I didn't see it, right? I knew I had every pure intention in my heart when I had a particular conversation. The conversation started to go sideways. In my mind, not for reasons of my own, but very obviously I had triggered someone in the room, right? So, and it was a group of people too, right? So it wasn't just with one person; it was this whole group of
even
people.
better, right? It's a group.
Right? Yeah.
Lovely,
So
right? Excellent. Everybody's triggered.
Yeah. Sorry, I keep talking about it. But yeah, each time I would go to get or to interact with that one person that was in that group, right? I made my way not around to everyone, because it just didn't work out that way where we weren't interacting, but say 3 or 4 of them. Of course, I start that conversation very similar to you. Hey, listen, that last conversation we were in, it was a little awkward. Did I say something that offended you? Like it sort of being okay with, sort of, and that empathy is really more self-empathy, right? Being okay with the fact that you might have made a mistake, even if you don't see it.
Yeah, that's good.
And knowing that doesn't mean that you're a bad person and you're horrible and you're terrible and you're, dad's going to beat you and, whatever gets thrust in there from your life experiences, right? So, that could just be, hey, look, did I help me understand? And doing that from a place of kindness to yourself, empathy with yourself, as well as allowing them to talk. And again, it sometimes goes great. Sometimes they really are terrible people and they just attack you, right? But you have to be kind to yourself to know who you are before you have those conversations, I think. Yeah.
I want to read a couple comments. So Trung wrote, yes, so important to pick up the phone. Emails, IMs are not enough. Totally.
In fact, they make it worse sometimes. The instant messages, because they don't have context. There's no tone, right? So you're saying, hey,
inflection.
Hey, where are you? And they're hearing, where are you?
Where are you?
And by the way, Trung, I've known Trung since college. I know that guy. He's
awesome. Yay! Awesome. So what's interesting about this is someone had mentioned to me that it is, and he says, happy birthday, Joe. Yeah, happy birthday. Thanks, somebody mentioned to me, like, when you bat it back and forth 3 times, it's time to pick up the phone, right? Pick up the phone, have a meeting.
Yeah.
I like that rule of thumb. I think that's good. That helps the communication, helps show that you're showing up and trying to be a good partner. Hi, Phil. Good to see you here. So he says, so we're on the on the apology thing, like, not, I'm sorry you have a problem with that. Flipping the apology.
Yeah, that's almost like sympathy, not empathy, right? Like, I'm sorry you have that issue.
Sucks to be you, right? That's not fun. Oh my gosh.
And trust me, even though it's my go-to, don't think I'm some kind of perfect, right? I mean, I struggle with that as well. I mean, the text thing gets me a lot because I get on my phone and I'm having conversations with folks, and then I just get on and I'm thinking I'm talking, but I'm texting, and like even with you, Michelle, I've done that. And
I
you're
know.
like, are you pissed? I'm like, oh my gosh, no! Why would you think that?
I've also done the same thing, right? I mean, Amy and I've had chats. She's like, what? And I'm just moving fast. And I think that when we had that exchange, it was moving fast. You're like, no, I'm in the doctor. I'm trying to juggle all these balls, wear this hat, and like I was perceiving it wrong.
Yes.
So on the how, I mean, one of the examples I gave was, you go ahead.
I was going to say that's actually another how too, is take a deep breath and slow down and be present in the conversation you're having, because empathy is making sure you're understanding where the person's coming from and that they're understanding you. But I mean, we hang out in the highly intellectual circles, Michelle. Like, I mean, my mind goes so fast. I often think faster than the people around me, and then my message doesn't come across properly, and it can be taken badly too. So yeah, slowing down, taking breaths.
Phil says, whoa, I got to call out. Thanks, Phil. Of course. Anybody who's going to comment, I'm going to try to call out and actually have them participate in the conversation. So let's talk about some of the things so how does someone practice empathy if they're not necessary, if it's not essential or who they are? I mean, for me, one of the tips that I would give is what I think Kristen gave it earlier. Stop to consider that something might be going on with that person, that they might be reacting. And that was one of the things that I learned from Jay, is that we're driving, right? We're driving behind this ridiculous person
who's going slow just to piss you off.
Exactly. Personally. Right. And or they're, I think the example was they were behind me and they're like this far from my bumper.
Yeah. And you're supposed to go faster.
Jay's like, you don't know, maybe they're getting ready to have a baby, or maybe the mom has cancer. I'm like, that's what you think? I'm like, why are you following me? He's like, I'm just saying, I mean, put yourself in their shoes. I'm like, okay, I get it. I mean, so that is, I think, a really good tip to, can you put yourself in their shoes and see that they could be having a hard time, or if they're reacting, like in the case of they're blowing up. I've blown up. I know how that feels. I know how it feels to receive an email that's like blowing off my eyebrows. So I can put myself in a person's place and then apologize, like we said, assuming I have it in me to do that, and it's true, and I actually feel that way. What else would you say, Joe?
Well, what I just said, because sometimes in order to be able to have that kind of conversation with yourself, you have to take a deep breath and slow down. And if whatever is happening is affecting you emotionally, try to get out of that emotion, especially if it's negative, right? So, because, I imagine let's say again, you're at work, you're in a meeting, you're at a lunch or whatever, someone reacts to you in a negative way, and you're like, oh, how do I show empathy for that person when they're attacking me? Well, most people can't. And that's good, right? You're designed that way. That is a protection mechanism that people have, right? But you can take yourself back, take deep breaths, and at a later time, have that conversation, right? You don't have to have it right then and there. You don't have to push forward and keep pushing. I made that mistake very recently in that same group setting, right? I was like, wait a minute, let's resolve it. But this is what I'm trying to say. But but it was too late. There was emotions involved, right? No one was listening. Yeah. So we had to stop. It's just like, we'll just talk later.
That's fantastic.
But then you have to talk later, right? You can't say let's talk later. Sure. And never talk to the person, right? I mean, you have to follow back.
I love that. So Phil's gonna make it funny. Be empathetic, or you'll end up telepathic. Doesn't that mean pathetic, even from far away? Nice. I like Phil. Phil and I work together at Oracle, isn't it? He is a good dude. Good,
awesome.
Smart. Yeah, right. Any other comments that you would like to add for people that are
when you say if
mindful
you want
of
to
this?
learn it and it doesn't come natural to you. To me, empathy is so attached to other things that are inside, right? You can practice it, but I would say research a book, see a
Cool.
therapist, see a life
Yep.
coach, see someone who's trained in diagnosing the reason, right? Because oftentimes it's not because you're just a hard ass person, right? No, there's something in you that formed in your psychology as you grew up that said, I'm going to deal with the world in this way, right? So understanding a little bit about that, while I had empathy to spare, Michelle, you knew that, but like you in the beginning when we were first project managing, the same thing. I think we just talked about this, right? I just say facts. I'm just stating facts. I'm not, why are you mad? Why I'm just stating fact, right? It actually does matter
because you're a robot. That's why.
Yeah. And then I had to learn, well, for me, that's because God love her, she's passed away, but my mom was very hard nosed, right? It was just facts. And so I grew up learning, well, that's okay. We just said factual things to each other in a very direct, commanding, sometimes blaming voice, but it was all facts, right? But of course that matters, when you're interacting with people. So I had to learn through, my life coaches and my therapists and stuff. Hey, tone matters sometimes. What you say to yourself matters. How your internal dialogue with yourself matters, right? Because if someone says, hey, you did this wrong, you can hear with that internal dialogue, hey, you're horrible and you're a failure and you will never amount to anything. You're like, I didn't say that, right? So sometimes you just have to work on yourself too to figure out why you don't present with that more vulnerable side of yourself.
And Phil's just suggesting, I'm going to assert you can take empathy too far. I'm a person who can see things 100%. That people might worry about that we're not worried about until I bring it up. And that's totally true. And so that character strengths that you reference, and if anybody wants that, you can just ping me via all the places, what social media or email or whatever. But that character assessment, we talk about empathy is strong for you, but it could be overused. It could be
and I totally have.
Right? Yeah. So, just like courage and honesty is two of my superpowers, but there's a time that I so overused honesty to the fault. Like, I'm going to beat you over the head with this, right? Like here.
Right. Well, we were both doing that, right? Yeah. But I was honest. I was just stating facts.
Yeah.
I can't help that they make you feel bad, even though, of course, I know they would.
Right. Well, like everything is not data driven, or at least well thought out. It can be paralyzing and crippling. And I love your comment, Joe, on researching. Right. So there's plenty of books that are available. Counseling gets a bad rap, therapists or counseling get a bad rap, but I think that is, I've used them, you've used them. I think that if there's somebody that's struggling with this, that it's going too far or it needs some help, that's certainly an option. Life coaching in general, all of those things are viable.
Yeah. At this point, the person I see is really, in his professional sort of corporate career, 23, 25 years is I forget what they call them. We used to call them like ECC, but it was basically if you work for a company and you had an emotional issue you wanted to work out, you got 5 free sessions with like their corporate therapist.
Do you get a punch card? Is what you're saying?
Yeah, right. But, you could even search out someone who does that specifically, right? Because you may not be saying, "Oh, okay, I really want to work on myself on the inside," but at work, I would like to learn the following things, right? And so that person might more, in a more focused manner, say, "Oh yeah, building, boundaries at work is different than in your personal life. Let's talk about that. What does that mean? Right? What's the safe way? What's the wrong?" And they also can give you the ways around that, not around it, but sort of how that interacts with the HR, the company, and some other things that might help you as you practice that at work versus
the idiosyncrasies of what could be landmines or subtleties in executing it.
Exactly.
Nice. Yep. This is fantastic. Thank you.
Why, thank you.
Thank you for everybody that participated and for those that watch later. Joe, how can people reach you? And if they want to talk about this or want to talk about how they can interact with you and what you do.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm recently disabled, restarted a staffing agency, called Supportek Staffing. That's S as in Sam, UPPORTEK Staffing. My email is Joe at supportekstaffing.com. That's SUPPORTEK, S as in Sam, TAFFING.com. That's a long one to go. But so what I do is I'm an entrepreneur. And if you look at my LinkedIn, you'll see empathic entrepreneur as a as a side. And I just get thrill of building companies, interacting with people, building relationships. That's kind of my thing. And then coming up in the future, you might be seeing me do some other projects around kind of helping LGBTQ youth and young adults who were raised in trauma, right? So I was raised in trauma, and I am LGBTQ and gay. So I came up on in a household that really didn't teach you to value yourself or to be vulnerable and to speak your truth, because there was a lot of abuse behind those actions, right? And so what that does is it sets these poor kids up to later in life to be abused more often. They pick relationships that aren't healthy, etc. So that's my next thing I'd like to try and get into and provide some services and support to help these folks do.
That's awesome, Joe. Trung wanted I wanted to just
thank you. Yes, Trung. EAP. Exactly.
That is a beautiful suggestion. Thank you for that. Oh, I've not heard of opm.gov. Are you familiar with that, Joe? Do you know what opm.gov is? Okay.
Trung will respond back though, but maybe that's a place where you can go and look for.
Those are awesome resources, Trung. Thank you for suggesting that. That's super helpful for people too. So, thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Happy birthday again. As always, it's amazing to talk to you and your wealth of information and knowledge.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you too, and I'm sure I'll see you soon. Hopefully.
Yep.
You got to get up to your place.
I know. Bye.
All right. Everyone. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.